Hi, how are you? Today we're going to talk about how to study for phonetics. My name's Dan. I'm a tutor at Kane University's Tutoring and Learning Support Services. I'm a speech language hearing science major, and this is one of the required courses for that major. A lot of students have difficulty with phonetics, and rightfully so. It's not a tough course, it's essentially learning a whole new language to talk about English and all sounds that we produce. So what is the big differences there between normal language and phonetics? Well, first of all, when we write every day, we use what we call orthography. That's basic letters, spellings. Those symbols can combine to represent different sounds, right? So in English, that PH combines to make essentially the same sound as an F. The problem is that those things can get distorted, and if someone is reading it who is not necessarily a native English speaker, they might read that as a p, two different sounds. So what phonetics does is it takes our sounds and it encodes them in their own symbols. So that same pH in phonetics is the F. That's the sound it makes. It's f. And then we also have different sounds for all the different varieties of vowel sounds, right? So n, e, t, I, k, s. So phonetics. Each of these sounds here has its own specific symbol. So we had orthography at the top, phonetics at the bottom. Today we're going to talk about how to start studying for this. So those symbols that you saw in the phonetical production are called IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet. They're distinct symbols specifically used, but they're used by people speaking, writing, and phonetics all over the world. That's why it's the International Phonetic Alphabet. So it allows us to all discuss sound. The cool thing about phonetics is that I can listen to somebody speak French, and I can write their French transcription in phonetics, and someone who's never heard a word of French in their life could read it and reproduce the sounds that the French speaker made. So this is the most important. When I say the most important, I mean the most important tool that you can employ in learning phonetics. There's 107 different IPA symbols, and whereas learning a different language is one thing, this is tough because you're going to see a lot of these symbols and your brain is trained to recognize it, but it's going to mean something different than you're used to. The best way to break those habits is to get into using the flashcards and learning not only the sounds, the symbols, their names, their places, but these tools are definitely going to help you. Please do this. Everyone I know who did this did infinitely better than those who did not. People who thought they could just do this with memorization or cramming the night before are retaking that class. I know this works. It worked for me. It worked for a lot of my peers. Right, so these are just basic. This is a drawing of a basic standard 3x5 index card, blank on one side, lined on the other. So what we're going to do with them is on the blank side, these slashes here, these are called virgules. If you're writing in phonetics in citation form and you do not put these, it is wrong. So please get in the habit of anytime you're doing a phonetic transcription to put these down, right? So inside those virgules, we're going to put the IPA symbol we're talking about, a single symbol, the name of the symbol at the bottom. That is important because they do all have names, and it's hard to talk about, oh, that weird squiggly line. There's a lot of weird squiggly lines in IPA. So if we have names for them, it's easier for us to discuss them as a class. You might not use them that much after that, but it's definitely good for understanding and for being able to communicate things you're having trouble with. It helped me. It actually helped my class that I kind of was doing it too, because I forced my professor to start doing it, and we all benefited in the end. So the things you can put on the other side of the card, this is the money here. Keyword. Your keyword is going to be a word that is uniquely represents that sound for you. It should be a simple word. It should not be a word that you are going to mispronounce. You need to know that vowel sound in there, backwards and forwards. So every time you see that symbol, you'll remember this vowel. I also normally include the my keyword and then the transcription of it underneath, right? So whatever the word would be, you're going to write the IPA transcription down here, so that you're used to seeing it that way too. The other important thing that you're going to do, you're going to do your tongue position, which is not something you're going to decide. It's something that has been decided by the medical field and the SLP field, with scans and whatnot. So it's, what your tongue and mouth do when you make this sound. Tongue position, do you round, or is it a rounded or unrounded sound, meaning are you rounding your lips? That one's a little bit easier to determine. And then, is it tense or lax, which will throw you for a loop. You can fake yourself into believing any, so you need to definitely write these on your cards and get them memorized and applied early, so that when you have to utilize them later and apply them to more complicated procedures, it's second nature. So here's our example. This is the symbol here, the IPA symbol. It's ash. That's the name of it. It is also, ironically, a good keyword for it. That's not normally the case. But you see, I put it in the virgules. There's the symbol. There's the name of the symbol. And that makes an ah sound, like cat. Cat, ash, any word you want to use for this is fine. So we have the word spelt in orthography. We have the phonetic transcription. Notice there is no C. And then I also did the place of production, right? So low front, unrounded, lax. You're not going to necessarily need to understand what that means when you first write these cards, but put it on there and get in the habit of repeating it every time you do it, so that when you do need it, it's not something you have to think about or worry about. So the reason that it's tricky and that I recommend using cards is because, we have our 5 vowels that we use in English: A, E, I, O, U. Those are the orthographic representations there, or, our basic letters. But in reality, we use them 100 different ways. Sometimes we combine them to represent their different sounds. Like an A has not just A, there's A, there's ah. And what phonetics does is it makes a different symbol for each, right? We have ah, like ostrich, ah, like cat, A, which if you notice is an E, it's a lowercase e. A is like in April. So right there's 3 things that we represent with just the letter A in English, but it has 3 different sounds there. So we also get into E sounds. This is as in egg or excellent. This lowercase I is actually an E as in free or tree or ether, whatever your word choice might be there. This small capital I is like igloo or it. O is luckily just O, as in open. Now, but when we say we have other words, or we do like box, that ah is actually this script A, right? So once again, we have O in orthography, but it's an A in phonetics, and it's a specific A, so be careful. Lowercase u is oo, as in it's oo, as in book, look, took, and then this letter here, this is a Greek letter. It's a upsilon is for could, should, and they're really close. This is a tricky one for a lot of people, but book and could, there's a different quality to the vowel sound, so these are definitely ones to have good words for as well. This here is called a wedge. This is for a stressed what's a good word? Butter has this. Butter would be spelt this way with the wedge. But now when you have that somewhere else in the word, when it's not stressed or it's a weak syllable, so this is a schwa. This is that same sound in but an unstressed like child. I'm sorry, like little at the end. That little is the schwa. This one here, this is called an open O. This is aw. If you're from New Jersey like me or New York, you probably say dog, and coffee, that's the aw, is this sound. Whereas if you're from somewhere else in the country, you might say dog, coffee. That's that lowercase script a again. So right there, phonetics comes into play. We can write the difference in a dialect the way that it's written, right? It's the same word. It's spelt the same way. Dog is D-O-G, no matter where you're from in the U.S. or an English-speaking world. But the sound is different, and we talk about the sound in phonetics. So these guys down here are special cases. These are these are ERs. We have a bunch of vowels that we talk about in phonetics that are either joined with an R or shaped with R's. We're just going to talk about these two right now. This is just an intro lesson. So this is a right hook epsilon, and that's an Firm, F-I-R-M in orthography is this, firm. It's a stressed ER sound, but we call it a vowel. This guy is an unstressed. This is called a schwa. Notice it sounds just like schwa, which was the upside down E. Let me show you, in fact. So this is a schwa, and this is a schwar. But the quick way to write it is like that. Right, so the schwar would be actually a really good word for both, is murder. It's a dark word, but it works for what our purpose is here, so it's, so we're going to do murder. Right, so we have both of them in the same word. You have the right hook epsilon mer, it's the stressed syllable, it's where the emphasis is, and then the der, it's the end. So murder. There is a difference in the sound. There's a reason that they to separate them. You will notice that there are some sounds that are in here, because some of the vowel sounds that we use in English are actually a combination of two sounds, right? So the ones we just talked about are all monophthongs, which means it's one sound. Mono means one. Right? So there's one vowel in one syllable. We also have diphthongs, which means two sounds. There's triphthongs, but we're not going to go there today. That's two vowel sounds combined into one syllable. So in English, the pronoun I, like I want to eat, that I in there, we call a vowel in English, but it's really multiple sounds combined. It's I, E. So in phonetics, we illustrate that. We take two vowel sounds and then we join them, and that's how you create the sound I. It's not the only one. There's ow, oi. Those are all diphthongs as well. You also have what they call R-colored vowels, but I don't want to talk about that today. It's for a later lesson. So I'll show you now just what the front of the card would look like for some of these guys. So the small capital I, that's the name of the game here. You get the virgules, the symbol, which is literally, it's a capital I, but it's a small capital I. It takes the same amount of space as a lowercase letter. This would be my word for that, igloo. I then did the phonetic transcription. Underneath, we have a lowercase I, and the keyword is free, right? So you would think there'd be an E involved there. There is not. The word is FR, lowercase I phonetically, and that's how you do free. So I'll transcribe a couple words real quick for you. Real fast. So when you have a word and you only change one sound out between it, like free and fray, that's called a minimum pair, because you're only changing one phonetic sound. Fry, fro. So we have a whole bunch of them. So this is not because there's two sounds here, but it's a different story. So free, F-R-E. We just did this one, right? So now normally that A sound here would be represented by a lowercase e. When certain vowels are stressed or at the end of a word, you write them as if they were stressed. and they get written a little differently. They have a form for when they're the stressed syllable. So fray. Right. So this is what it would look like somewhere else in a word. This is what it looks like when it's stressed or at the end of a word as an open vowel. Fry. Fry is a diphthong, or the I is a diphthong. We just talked about that guy. So type A, small capital I with the arch. And fro is going to be another one where when that vowel is open at the end, it gets written differently, right? So this is the long O sound, but this is what it looks like when it's in a word like that, when you have to stress it. That's the right way to write that word. And then lastly, we have frown. That ow is a diphthong, so type A, upsilon, frown. That's it. Those are 5 words there, all starting with the same different vowel sounds on there, one with an ending after, just so you could see. And it's also why it's important to learn the differences between them early. Consonants are going to work just like the vowels. The difference is we don't talk about where the tongue is for that. We talk about where we produce the sound, where we interrupt the flow of air. That's kind of what differentiates consonants and vowels. So now it's important to talk about what a phoneme is. A phoneme is the smallest, right? The smallest distinct unit of sound. So it means I can't break that sound into smaller sounds. Sometimes we'll have combinations that you might think are separable, but they're not, and vice versa. You'll have ones where you're used to seeing it as 2 letters, so you think it's 2 sounds, and that's what we're going to talk about first. So this is an S versus an esh. S is pretty much the same as we hear it in English. Words like stop, fast, awesome. But the esh is for when we commonly would write sh. Sometimes you also see it in ch if it's a word from with a different country of origin. But like sheep, wish, Washington. So that's only one sound though. You can't separate sh into s and h. The s doesn't make sh, if that makes sense. So ash does not equal s plus h. Right? I know this is crazy. Now I'm writing math stuff on a phonetics thing. Don't worry. I just wanted you to see what I'm talking about, why this is a single symbol. It's important to understand that that's like one sound that cannot be broken into pieces. Okay, so that's the name of it, is esh. Some of them are just have their standard name like s. And these are example words. So I'm going to show you the differences now making a card. We're going to start with the phoneme B. It's a simple one. It's one of the first sounds we learned to make as kids, right? So I did the same thing on front, right? It's the back of the blank side of the card. We have virgules. I wrote the symbol, which is just the lowercase b. Then you get into some of the differences. So place, for the letter B, it's a bilabial. B, you use your 2 lips. That's what bilabial means, to produce the sound. Stop. That means we stop the air to do a stop. We actually interrupt the flow of air entirely for a moment. And is it voiced or unvoiced? What that means is your voice box, is your vocal folds engaged when you're making that sound? B does actually have voicing, whereas P does not. That's its counterpart. So let's make a keyword for it while we're here. So a good word for B. We can just keep it like that. B, right? How would we write that? B, lowercase I. Right, so place, manner, voice. That's important. That is stuff that'll show up on midterms and finals and all that good stuff. It's how we discuss children and phonological processing disorders. So once again, it's important to get on those cards right away and learn from the get-go. Real quick before we wrap up, I want to show you guys writing, importance of spacing and sizing. This is supposed to be like a template, like of the old paper that you got in elementary school to learn how to write cursive or basic handwriting. So let's see, we did a B. A B is a normal B, right? So just so you can compare it. So it goes from the very top line, the guideline, to the bottom guideline. The curved part is up to the halfway mark. That's a normal lowercase letter mark, right? However, something like that esh that we did before is like that, right? It goes from the top to below, extends below the line. Small capital I. It's called that because it's a capital I, but it's written in the size of a lowercase. If you have proper names that you're transcribing, like I did Washington before, if you write this, you're wrong. That's not a phonetic symbol. You've written something wrong. It would be marked as such, right? Doesn't matter if it's a first name. The W is still a W. It's they're always lowercase, unless it's the size of that. So even if the word was, if you were writing the name Adam, if you write that, you're wrong. That's not a phonetic symbol at all. So Adam. No, that's Adam. Oh, that would be the ash, right? Adam. Yeah. Just so you can see, so writing is super important in these. Sizing. You'll start to get in more of the naming and the different types, but I wanted to give you something you could reference and go back to. Once again, my name is Dan. I'll definitely put up some more phonetics videos. I know this is something people come to see me about a lot. I hope this was helpful, and please, please, please take my advice, make these flashcards, and that's all we got today.